teacher logs into the system, and I will log in here. The co-op writer goes out to the student information system, grabs all of the students that are taking co-op in this school year, that semester, for the school that I'm logging in as. I can be logged into multiple schools, and I can change between my schools just by clicking on the working school and changing to whichever school it is that I'm teaching at. If I only teach at one school, then the only school that would be listed would be the one that I do teach at. This allows teachers who are in alternative programs who may have multiple campuses to have the whole system set up customized so that when it prints the output for that individual student, it's for the physical location that the student is attending school at. Typically at the beginning of each semester, the co-op teacher would go to the Profiles tab, to Student Profiles, where they would see a listing of all of the students that are taking co-op in their school that semester and that school year. They can change to previous semesters or previous school years simply by changing the working year or changing the working semester. Here's a list of students who have already been in co-op. We'll use this as our working year for now. To set your own class list, there's a couple of ways to do it. The easiest is to click on the Transfer to Me button. So all of the students who have not been assigned to a co-op teacher, it would say no co-op teacher assigned or no teacher assigned. Any student who has a teacher assigned to them, it would have that teacher's name. Students who already have a personalized placement learning plan created, it'll show the name of wherever they're employed at. Clicking anywhere on that line opens up a detailed screen about that individual student. I'll go back to the student profiles again. To transfer the students to me, I click on the checkbox beside the students that I want in my class list for this semester, and then I would click the transfer button. That moves all of those students to me so that I'm set as the teacher of record for them within the co-op system. To create a learning plan, I would go to the Learning Plans tab, click on Create a New Plan. My drop-down box where it says Select a Student lists all of the students who I've said I'm teaching this semester. Any student that's highlighted in gray already has a PPLP created for them. Any student that's highlighted in white still needs to have a PPLP created. I'll take this student. When I choose the student's name, my page refreshes with the semester set and today's date. I have an opportunity to select the tie-in courses. Depending on how the board has it set up, some boards allow for 3 tie-in courses, some only allow for 2. If your board allows for 2, you would only see 2 tie-in courses. Click on the drop-down box and I see the courses that are available to me for this student. And the student that I have selected, because it's a sample student, has access to every course that's ever been made available. I'm going to choose Grade 9 Dramatic Arts because I know it's going to be a sample at that point then. When I chose the tie-in course, the course name, the course type, the grade, and the curriculum are all filled in for me. I have to say how many course credits I'm going to be assigning to that student or to that course in co-op. Most of the courses will be a 2-credit co-op. If you have a 3-credit or a 4-credit, you can choose multiple courses and tie in. It's exactly the same process. When I chose the tie-in course, I had an expectations button up here. This is the curriculum expectations. When I click on the expectations button, I'm presented with the ministry expectations specific to that course. I have the year that the expectation was put in place. The reason that we do that is some courses are updated periodically. If a student took Grade 9 Dramatic Arts 2 years ago and the curriculum was updated this past year, you need to be able to choose the curriculum from the year that the student actually took that course. I'll choose a couple of expectations. I have the opportunity to enter a demonstration of learning at this point if I want, or I can leave it blank. Typically what happens is the co-op teacher chooses the curriculum expectation. They don't enter a demonstration of learning, and at the first integration session, in conversation with the student, they'll find out what does the student do at that placement that shows a competency in that expectation. At that point, the demonstration of learning is put in. I'm going to attach these expectations to the learning plan by clicking on the Attach button. The next place I would go to would be about the placement information. I'm going to click on the employer button to see a list of all of the employers that are available to me or to my school. I have the employer name, who the contact person or supervisor is, and what type of job do they take students in. If an employer takes students in more than one type of job, then I would see them listed. For example, Al's Auto takes students in auto mechanics and in electronics. To select the auto mechanics placement, I would click on the select button. Fills in for me who the placement is, who the supervisor is, what their address is, and so on. I need to give the student a job title. I'm going to call them a mechanics assistant. I'll say whether it's a morning placement, an afternoon placement, or an all day. This is a 2-credit co-op, so it's probably going to be a morning placement. When I chose my employer, I had the opportunity, or an expectations button appeared, and I have the opportunity to choose the expectations that the employer has for this student. These are a list of expectations that were entered with the employer. I can modify them if I want. Let's take those out. But I do want those expectations. I want those expectations. And I want to add something else that's not already in the system. Because it's auto mechanics, they need to differentiate between a carbureted engine and a fuel injected. If I'm not sure what else they could do, I have the opportunity to look in the NOC database. The NOC stands for National Application Communication. NOC stands for National Occupation Classification Database. I click on NOC. If I know the NOC code, I can enter it. 9414 is the only one I know off the top of my head. When I click on NOC code search, I see a general job description, 21 similar job titles to that occupation, as well as job duties. If there are more than 21 job titles, the word more appears, and it's a hyperlink. When I click on more, I see all of the jobs that are part of that grouping. Now, if you don't know the NOC code, you can do a title search. I'm going to do one for business, finance, and admin in accounting, just as an example. It's a keyword sounds like search, so if I'm not sure how to spell, I could say accountant, E-K-K-O-W-N-T-Y-N-T. I hit title search, and it provides me things that are similar to accountant. Again, I'll click on more, and I see more of a list. If I spelt it correctly, it would also give me the same types of jobs. I'm going to choose accountant, and these are different types of duties that an accountant would do. Now in this case, it's an auto mechanics placement, so we're going to go to trades, transport, and equipment, and I'm going to type in mechanic. Do a title search, and there are a number of different types of mechanic jobs. I'll select those expectations, copy them to my employer, and there they are in the system. I'll attach those to the learning plan. If there were any accommodations that I need to make for the student, I click on the accommodations button. These are the most common accommodations according to our user group, and you have the opportunity to type something else in if it's not already listed. I'm not going to make any accommodations for this student though. If the co-op is a paid co-op placement, we would check off paid co-op placement because we report the hours to the ministry at the end of the school year. If there were any specialized equipment that the student was going to use, I would enter it here. My assessment dates are already filled in for me because I set them on my teacher profile. I can modify them though, just by clicking on it and putting in the new date. At this point, I've completed my personalized placement learning plan, so I'm going to click on the Save button. And it redirects me to an OEAP registration screen. Because I said that the student was in a auto mechanics placement, auto mechanics is an apprenticeable trade. If this is applicable, if the student is going to be working as an auto mechanic, I would choose automotive service technician. And I have the opportunity to say that the student will be registered as an apprentice, or the student will simply be participating in the trade. If they participate in the trade, what we need is the registration number, when they're starting, and how many hours per week they'll be doing. If the student is going to be registered as an apprentice, there's more information that's needed. We'll say that they're simply participating in the trade. I don't have the student's registration number at this point, so I'm going to click Save to move on. When I did that, it brought me back to a screen that shows me all of the current PPLPs that I have already produced. When I made the PPLP, it also filled in the information for me about the work education agreement. So starting a PPLP also makes a work ed agreement. I can go in the opposite direction. I could start with a work ed agreement. I'll do one for this student. It fills in the student's address for me. I'll choose their tie-in course, grade 9 dramatic arts. I'll select my employer. It'll be this employer. That's the supervisor for them. Section B was filled in for me with what was already on the last the last work ed agreement that we used. I can modify this specifically to the student. Section C is typically filled out at the end of the semester once the student has finished their placement. I click on Save. I'm back at the current plan screen. I have a white background to let me know that this was a work ed agreement that was created and the PPLP has not been finished. This gives me a draft version of the PPLP. If I click on View Placement, I have the opportunity to come in and finish the PPLP for that student. So starting a PPLP also creates a work ed agreement, or creating a work ed agreement starts the PPLP. Both of them work both ways. The fastest way to make a PPLP is to take an existing one and copy it forward to another student. To do that, I'd click on Copy an Existing Plan, choose the tie-in course that I want to use, or choose the co-op job type that the student is going to be placed in. Or if I know an employer that I want to use because I've used them in the past, I could type the employer name in. Or I can do any combination of the three. In this case, I'm going to say I want all of the grade 9 dramatic arts courses that were used for PPLPs, and I have a list of them. Now I want to refine it a little bit more. I want all of the grade 9 dramatic arts where it was an auto body placement. I hit search and I see these. To copy it to another student, I click anywhere on the line for the learning plan I want. It shows me the learning plan details, the tie-in course that was used, the curriculum expectations that were used, and what were the employer expectations that were used for that placement learning plan. I can copy it to another student by choosing the student's name. Everything that was on that last PPLP has been copied over to this PPLP, and now I have the opportunity to customize it specifically to my student. This will be a 1-credit co-op, and there's going to be different expectations. Here's where I get to personalize it specifically for this student. I would hit Save, and again I'm presented with the OEAP screen. In this case, the student is going to be at an auto body placement, but they're not really doing auto body work. They're simply there as a gopher or someone who's helping out. Most of the duties that they will be doing would be sweeping the floor, handing tools to the auto mechanic, but not actually doing any of the actual work. I hit Save because it's not appropriate for it to be an OEAP placement. You'll notice in this case, there is no line that says EOIS signature obtained. This lets you know at a quick glance that this placement is not an apprenticeable trade. The one above that does say EOIS signature obtained, this is an apprenticeable placement, and it requires the Ontario College of Trades forms to be filled out for the student.